Welcome to Totally Talent Podcast by HR.com, your go-to source for all things talent. Whether you're looking for expert insights on high-volume hiring, the latest trends in recruitment technology, or strategies for building a winning team, we've got you covered. Join us for each episode as we dive deep into the challenges and opportunities shaping the talent landscape today. Let's get started.
Hey friends, welcome to another edition of Totally Talent on HR.com. I am your host, Mike Wood, and I have a very special episode with you today. I'm joined by Harris Bornstein. He's the VP of Global Partnerships at First Advantage, and he's been in the industry for a very long time, longer than me. He's been before First Advantage partnered up with Sterling. You were there for about 25 years. Welcome to the show.
Great. Thanks, Mike. Appreciate you having me.
So to get everyone grounded, can you walk us through kind of like your career journey and how you found your way into the wonderful world of background screening and HR tech?
Yeah, of course. Well, like many kids growing up in the 80s and 90s, I went to college with my heart set on a career in background screening and HR tech.
Yeah.
I actually got my start from a family friend who had heard. He was a friend of my dad's. He had heard that I earned a degree in criminal justice from Rutgers. He's like, "Oh, you got to meet Bill Greenblatt, who was our CEO at Sterling at the time. His company does background checks." And at the time, that was pretty much all we did. I mean, we were going back to the late 90s. So I was a month out of school and had my interview and was like, all right, I'll do this for a while until I find something else. And, almost 27 years later, here I am. So, the background screening world was very different back then, as I mentioned.
Share us some of it. Like, so what's changed? I know everything's online now, so that's probably a lot easier. Yeah. But like back then, when you first started, like, what's the process of getting a background?
Yeah, I mean, I started in. I mean, it was really a customer service role, but we called it the results department because we had no email. We barely had a website, and you would think we were talking about like the 1950s, but it was 1999. And my job was to call customers and read them their screening results. We had like 300 customers at the time. A candidate file would make its way around the office. It would sit in the credit department. They would print out the credit report, staple it to it. It would go to the criminal department. They do the criminal report, staple it to it. It would all end up at my desk. And I would call customers and read them their report. And the really bizarre piece of it also, as you think back not that long ago, is they'd often ask me to like fax them results. So I would sit there with, faxing reports to people that had dates of birth, social security numbers, full names. I mean, it was like, it was a free for all back then. So, positive drug tests. And, we actually had a drug test. We were a drug testing collection site. So I'd go to the men's room and I'd be like dodging candidates just to go to the restroom because we had people there taking their drug tests. So yeah, it was a very different time back then. We had 40 employees. And, again, as you referenced, 26 years later, Sterling was acquired by First Advantage, and here we are, very, very different company.
Yeah, and it's a massive business now. I mean, it's funny to think that you started out kind of small like that, but I mean, it's a fundamental question that needs to be answered: is whether the person's hiring is who they say they are.
Yeah, and it's interesting because prior to 9/11, when we were selling screening, we were convincing companies why screen your employees, right? That was the sales pitch: is here's why you should be doing this. But obviously, since then, it's become more of like, all right, everybody's doing this now. Here's why we do it better. So that was really, to me, that was kind of a turning point. At the time, our tagline was, how well do you know the person you're about to hire? And again, it just kind of, it resonated during those times.
Yeah. I mean, if I was, if that was something that my company wasn't doing and someone came up to me and be like, do you actually know about this? All I need to hear is one horror story.
Yeah.
And you never know. So the past couple decades, you've been working on partnerships and integrations. Can you talk a little bit about what you do there?
Yeah.
And how maybe that's changed?
It has changed. When I started in partnerships back in 2011, where, again, at the time, we probably had 3 or 4 partners. All integrations were custom projects. long timelines, heavy engineering, high cost. API documentation was inconsistent. There was this HRXML language that we all had to kind of, work on together in the ecosystem. And partnerships were largely transactional or sales led, not really ecosystem driven. The integrations were very simple. Applicant tracking systems would push information to us. We would run the background check and then send the results back into their platform. And it was that way for a very long time. We really built up our ecosystem on the screening side of things and, along that story. And then over the last few years, obviously a lot has evolved. Partnerships have evolved into strategic revenue engines and versus, kind of nice to have alliances. The ecosystems now really help us drive growth. There's a lot of partner marketplaces where we participate in partner programs, co-selling motions. It's much more strategic now, and integrations are productized and scalable as part of the customer and candidate experience. So, in that sense, all these integrations have evolved, and because of the popularity of our service that has taken off in the last 20 years, it's made the opportunity to build an ecosystem really fun.
Great. I,
Yeah.
I think as I look back to my own background, and for those leaders who or listeners who haven't heard me talk about this, I spent a lot of time in the HR tech industry on the vendor side of things. And it used to be, okay, we need an integration because we're trying to make this big sale or whatever. So
That's right.
everybody drop everything and we're doing this big
Yeah,
integration. But now it feels like integrations are almost like having Gen AI incorporated into your platform. You have to have integrations just right off the bat, be able to integrate with everybody.
100%. Yeah, I mean it's table stakes at this point, and there's so many our customers out there all want everything to funnel through one system. So yeah, it's really important that you not just have an integration, but that it works well and provides a seamless experience, not just for the recruiter, but for the candidate. That idea has certainly evolved over time as well.
So, like, I love talking to people who've been in this industry for a long time. I started in 2013, and there's been a tremendous shift even from then. What are some of the things like you're seeing, even beyond what you're doing with like First Advantage? Like, if you go to any conferences or anything, well, like, what are some things that kind of stand out for you?
Yeah, it's a great question. To me, there's a lot of consolidation, right? And this is in our industry and in all of HR tech, right? Large human capital management platforms are providing their customers an experience that allows them to manage the entire life cycle from recruitment to offboarding. And they do that by, either creating their own products or in most cases finding the right partners to offer the best service, then integrating them into their experience. So, and of course, I wouldn't be an HR tech person if I didn't mention AI. So, AI driven decision making and automation are now just embedded into hiring and recruitment workflows. It's I mean, it's a buzzword in every industry. But for us, we're still kind of developing exactly how AI fits into what we do, other than the idea of um, sorting through um, candidate information, or sorry, the results of a background check to determine whether or not somebody would be eligible for a role. And then again, going back to something I mentioned before, the candidate experience has become just as important, if not more important than the recruiter or the HR experience. So if I go back, 15 years, everything that we did was to make the lives easier of HR people and recruiters. But now they want to make sure that the experience is just as seamless for their candidates. So for companies in our position that do very closely interact with candidates, that's become, very significant trend.
So one of the things I've noticed just and it's one of my kind of key themes for this year is that fraud is everywhere. And identity verification and knowing who you're talking to, especially with all these AI tools that I can use AI to create a version of me that can get hired at a bunch of different companies, but I may not necessarily know what I'm talking about. But one of the things I've seen is that so back in the day, it used to be the background check was the final thing you did, just to cover your bases legally to make sure you're hiring someone. Now it feels like we need to do that way earlier in the process. Have you seen that?
Yeah, I mean, 100%. So, you mentioned fraud being rampant in the world, and it absolutely is. And, it's not just, identity fraud. It used to be, somebody would steal my identity and pose as Harris Bornstein somewhere out there. But now it's this synthetic identity fraud that is so prevalent, and some people call it what I see is Frankenstein fraud, where people are combining real and fabricated data to come up with a phony identity. Like you said, like I could be anybody through AI or through whatever the case may be, as opposed to just stealing someone's identity. So we talk about one of the most prevalent services that we offer today is our identity verification, which through biometrics and through telephone records and things like that will make sure that the person is who they say they are, in a lot of cases even before or after a first interview, as opposed to where we usually would come in, which is post offer. So companies want to make sure that when they're interviewing someone, that they are who they actually say they are, because this is like this is something that we're hearing from all of our partners that their customers are struggling with.
So have you heard any kind of I know you have some horror stories, but I'm just curious if you can share any crazy stories, because I always love hearing about what people try to get away with over the years.
Yeah, it is crazy what people try to get away with, and it's really amazing to me how people know that we do background checks, and people know that they're when they apply for a job, they're going to be subject to a background check and a drug test. I think some of the horror stories I hear, some of what I hear, the most interesting stories are often around drug tests and what how people try to explain that they test positive. I've heard the poppy seed bagel thing a
Oh
million
yeah, the
times,
poppy
and
seed.
yeah,
That
the
Coca-Cola I had trace amounts of cocaine in it.
exactly. But our drug test now, which by the way, if you do have a poppy seed bagel, like with a lot of poppy seeds on it, you may test positive. But we do also, there's an additional test that goes on top of that to make sure that, is it heroin or is it a
It
poppy
was a
seed bagel?
poppy.
But when you ask the question, well, one thing that stood out to me, again, going back 20 plus years, back to a time when screening wasn't that prevalent. And there was a company back then, I won't mention their name, but they were essentially like Amazon before Amazon. There were guys and gals on bikes in major cities that were just delivering stuff to businesses and to homes. And they started their work with us by screening every single one of their employees. So when we were in New York, gosh, it must have been hundreds, if not 1,000 or so employees. We sent back all their information. A lot of people, quote unquote, failed. Um, and they formed a group of people that just literally marched up to our offices, were banging on the doors, demanding to speak with us. And it was, again, as a 21, 22-year-old kid, I was a little fearful at the time, but luckily we have locks on the doors. But it again, since you asked the question, that my mind always goes to that experience. And yeah, just people who, it's like, we didn't make this up. We're just providing information that's public record. I mean, that's really all we're doing.
Yeah, and you can't stand behind, hiring one of these bike messengers or whatever to go into somebody's business when you know that they have like a horrible
Yeah,
criminal record or something.
absolutely.
I think
Yeah,
I used a similar service in Boston where to get something from one end of the city to the next or whatever, you could either call a cab to like parcel deliver it or get a guy on a bike.
yeah,
And so like
exactly.
I kind of miss that. It was
I
it
know,
was
right?
fun to just be able to here's the microfiche. Here you go.
Yeah, exactly. By the way, it is important to call out that if there is a record that we provide, this is one of those things that, you know, a lot of candidates don't understand, and they're always provided with a summary of their rights. But if we provide information that is not accurate, they always have the right to dispute that information. And we, as a CRA, are obligated to investigate those claims, and we do that all the time. Again, oftentimes they end up in the exact same place we started, or candidates do have that right to dispute anything that's public record.
Yeah, just more transparency,
Yeah.
and I think, for the candidate, it's good to know that that's popping up on their record so that they know in the future.
Yeah, look, people are people are submitting resumes for a job. Here's another crazy one. I remember somebody who applied for a job at Sterling back in the day who lied about their education. It's like you're applying to a job, you're applying to a job to work at a background screening company that you know is going to check all your credentials and all of your information, and you still lie about your education on your resume. I mean, it's just some people just don't get it, I guess.
Well, I was thinking about putting a nice Harvard diploma behind me,
Yeah,
to make
you
people
can
think
do
that I
that.
went to Harvard. No, it's just a
A-
diploma. It's just wall decor.
AI could probably do that for you.
Yeah, yeah. So, like, I think one of the other things I wanted to touch about with background screening, and I I apologize. I didn't know how awesome the wonderful world of background screening and how cool it could be, but it is. So one of the things you do now is like continuous monitoring. So can you talk a little bit about that and the need for that?
Yeah, it's a great question and very timely. This is, when you talk about screening and our industry in general, and I go back to like we used to just be background checks at the point of offer. But now you expanded. I mentioned on the recruiting side, making sure that someone is who they say they are as step one of the process, and that their identity matches. You kind of go to the other end of the employee journey to once they're a worker, and even on offboarding. Um, it all the especially in regulated industries like healthcare, transportation, higher education, to some extent financial services. Um, Companies want to make sure that they're not only protecting their brand upfront before they actually make a hiring decision by doing a thorough background check, but also make sure that once someone is hired, that they're not, either they're not involved in criminal activity um, on an ongoing basis, or especially if they're a driver, making sure that their driver's licenses are up to date, are valid, don't have violations against them, aren't suspended, and things like that. In addition to other professional licenses like nursing licenses and other credentials. So um, the monitoring has become a very important piece of what we do, and like I said, especially in regulated industries where it's essentially it's a non-starter for them. They have to do it. Um, Again, you think about drivers, right? Commercial
Hmm.
drivers, especially, where um, if God forbid they get into an accident and it turns out that they were driving on a suspended license and the company didn't know about it. I mean, that I can't even imagine the problems that can come from that. Um, so yeah, there's certainly a lot. And again, think about healthcare, nursing licenses, or licenses that may have sanctions against them that an employer may not even know about. So it's important to just make sure that that those things are all up to date at all times.
So as we look ahead into the wonderful world of background screening, what do you see happening in, like, let's say, the rest of this decade, like the next couple of years or whatever, like more of the same, more instantaneous type of checking on people?
Yeah, it's a great question. I think about it a lot, actually, just having been doing this for so long. I I couldn't even begin to guess, but I do have thoughts, just based on what we're seeing. Certainly, if AI does what everybody thinks it's going to do, and it will continue to be a very, very hot trend, I think, for many years as we pre-validate data sources, reduce false positives, accelerate adjudication, and things like that. I think AI plays a key role in everything in the next few years. I do think identity verifications will continue to be very much at the top of the funnel. I think I wouldn't be shocked if we end up in a place where every job candidate out there has some sort of digital wallet or reusable credential that has, if you think about the services we offer, right? Like um, an education verification or an employment verification or other credentials that if you verify that information once, there's really no need to do it again. If I graduated Rutgers in June of 1999, then that and that never changes, as opposed to a background check. A criminal background check has to be redone at every point. But I think as a candidate, having that digital wallet and reusable credentials, it's something that's been talked about for many years, but I still am pretty confident that that will become a thing. Um, the other piece that comes to mind is also global background screening, which we haven't talked about yet, but this is also very much gaining traction in the space. Um, Doing background checks outside of the US, really outside of North America,
Yeah, tell me what that's like.
yeah, it's not. It is there. It is available. In many countries, the service that we offer is fantastic. It is, almost at par with what we do here in the U.S., if not the very similar or the exact same search. Obviously, the reliability of that information can vary country to country. The amount of time it takes to get these things done obviously varies country to country, but I think this will very much continue to evolve. And I think background screening, and especially in Europe and Asia, will eventually be as prevalent as it is here in the US. I mean, we're already basically at that point, but we still have plenty of customers here in the US who, we ask the question, what are you doing to screen your candidates outside the US? They're like, oh, we don't really do that. I think that attitude will change significantly in the next few years.
Yeah, I completely agree. And the digital wallet thing is interesting because I know that there are some startups that I've met along the way that are trying to do this, that are trying to
Yeah.
create some sort of, I mean, because if you check in, I just like checking into the airport or whatever. You just hand them your ID, whatever, they run it through their system. It should be something like that,
That's
where
right.
you're carrying it around with you, whether it's a digital ID or a physical one,
Yeah.
who knows? But yeah, it's so that you don't have to go talk to the college every 5 years and find out if that person actually went there or whatnot.
Yeah.
Uh,
Yeah, exactly.
so
Um,
I'll end on a fun question for you, since I know that you are a little bit of a New England fan. The Patriots are back in the Super Bowl. I know you're stuck in New Jersey, probably around the Jets and all other horrible teams. How do you feel about a wonderful team like the New England Patriots being back in the Super Bowl?
well, it's funny you should ask because I know you probably see Fenway Park behind me. I am a
I do.
diehard Boston Red Sox fan. I'm not a diehard Patriots fan. I'm actually,
I
I'm
should have done a
actually,
background check on you.
yeah, right. Um, I am a Giants fan, so I don't feel great about the Patriots being back in the Super Bowl. But I'm also like, again, as a diehard Red Sox fan, I don't hate the Patriots like most people in this area. So I do wish them well in the Super Bowl. But I'm just hoping for a good game.
Well, and the Giants are on the up and up.
Yes,
Can't get lower.
and I'm glad that the Chiefs aren't in it. Yes, the Giants can't get any worse.
Well, I want to thank you for joining me on Totally Talent. Your whole team at First Advantage is fantastic. I love talking to you guys. And if people want to find you online, it's just Harris Bornstein on LinkedIn, right?
Absolutely, yes. Feel free to reach out to me anytime on LinkedIn. It was really great speaking with you, Mike. I appreciate the time, and yeah,
All
thanks.
right. So
Thanks for everything.
thanks for a wonderful edition of Totally Talent.
Excellent.
Thanks for tuning in to the Totally Talent podcast by HR.com. We hope you find today's episode insightful and inspiring. Don't forget to explore more episodes and discover valuable resources at hr.com/podcasts, where you can listen to all of our podcasts. Until next time, keep leading with purpose and making a difference in the world of talent.